Hello guys! We hope you are having a great day today. For in this video, we are going to learn a lot about Chapter 5, Population and Mobility. Under this chapter, we are going to learn 3 lessons that this group will discuss. Let us start with the lesson number 1, Global Cities. There are 3 main things we are going to learn under this lesson. First is the attribute of global cities. Second, world's best-known global cities, and the reason why there are fast increasing numbers of global cities in the world. And at the end of this lesson, we are expected to satisfy 3 objectives. Identify the attributes of a global city, analyze the role of cities as engines of globalization, and determine the cause of increase in global cities. Let us start by defining what is a global city. A global city is defined as a city that enjoys significant competitive advantages that serves as a hub within a globalized economic system. It has wealth, power, and influence to other countries, as well as hosts the largest capital markets. In these cities, the center of economy in a country is found. There are existence of inhabitants with different cultures, the financial industry, as well as powerful partnerships, and even expansions of corruption. A global city could also have a big influence to other countries, meaning they don't need the state or country's name in order to connect with the other countries, because they themselves have the power already enough to do that. In other words, global cities function as a hub for communication, emergence, commerce, transportation, and flows of finance. Now we have here cosmopolitanism. When we say cosmopolitanism in globalization, it is a phenomenon mostly associated with global cities. When we say cosmopolitanism, we mean diversity. It is not a sense of belongingness into a group, but a belongingness in various numbers of groups. Global cities have this concept because a global city is diverse with different culture and industry. So in a global city, there are many kinds of things that are going on. There are stuffs with the industry, stuffs with education, and a lot more things. So we are going to tackle that in the next part of this lesson. Let us proceed to the attributes of the global city. So a global city are engines of globalization that provide spaces for industries that produce commodities and firms that provide services such as accounting, banking, information processing, and etc. Moreover, global cities offer convenience through proximity and just-in-time production of products and services. So a global city provides services in a various number of various scope of industry. So, hindi lang siya sa economy, pero meron din siya sa communication and in education, tulad ng sabi ko kanina. So, what makes a global city a global city? In our reading material, we have 13 attributes of a global city. Number 1, a variety of international financial services, notably in finance, insurance, real estate, banking, accountancy, and marketing. So, these attributes, sinasabi niya that a global city has an international financial services. Hindi lang siya bank for a certain place, pero meron ding bank, halimbawa, Bank of China in New York. So, Bank of China siya, pero nasa New York siya. So, it serves many financial services internationally. There are also headquarters of several multinational corporations. For example, yung Coca-Cola, saan ba siya naka-base? Ganun. The existence of financial headquarters, a stock exchange, and major financial institution. Tulad nga nung, connected ito siya sa first attribute na sinabi ko kanina na nag-offer ang isang global city ng international financial services. So, meron siyang mga financial headquarters tulad nung Bank of China. Naka-base siya sa New York. So, isa siyang malaking financial headquarters na naka-base sa isang global city. Number 4, domination of the trade and economy of a large surrounding area. Like what I have said earlier, a global city has a large scope of dealing inside the country and outside the country. So, meron din siyang domination of trade and economy sa large surrounding area. Number 5, major manufacturing centers with port and container facilities. So, doon daw a global city has a manufacturing centers, maraming manufacturing centers na doon din nakabase. Number 6, considerable decision-making power on a daily basis and at a global level. So, like what I said earlier din na sabi ko, meron silang power to influence. So, on a daily basis. So, hindi lang siya doon sa certain group, certain place or certain city, but of course, sa surrounding area niya na rin, pati na rin sa allied countries or at, like I said, at a global level. So, next, number 7, centers of new ideas and innovation in business, economics, cultures, and politics. A global city is a home daw for startups like halimbawa sa New York, Blue Apron, Etsy, Vice Media, Taboola. It serves as a ground for new ideas to spring and to become a large business na kasi nga 'di ba ang global city is a competitive place. So doon din daw nagiging training ground of new ideas. Center of Media and Communication for Global Networks. For example, sa New York, meron atang CNN headquarters doon eh. So, it's a global range of global networks lang din. Meron ding number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Dominance of the national region with great international significance. 10, high percentage of residents employed in the services sector and information sector. So, dahil may cosmopolitanism na concept na nandoon sa isang global city, maraming people or ang nagtatrabaho sa services sector and information sector. Yun yung mga present na mga industry na pwedeng pagtrabahoan ng napakarami various culture din doon sa isang global city. Meron din siyang high-quality educational institution, including renowned universities, international student attendance, and research facilities. For example, yung New York, Tokyo, and London are global cities. Bawat place ay meron silang mga renowned university, hindi lang sa city na yun, but all over the world, which is nag-a-attract siya ng mga students para dun mag-aral. For example, New York University in New York, Japan University in Tokyo, and University College London in London. Multifunctional infrastructures of offering some of the best legal, medical, and entertainment facilities in the country. And lastly, high diversity in language, culture, religion, and ideology. So, dahil nga 'di ba may phenomenon ng cosmopolitanism, normal lang sa isang global city na napakaraming races na nakatira doon na naga-inhabit. So kaya mayroong high diversity of language, culture, religion, and ideology kasi nga nag-i-interact sila within a global city. So this 13 attribute makes a global city. Pero in other words, a global city has economic power for having largest stock exchange, headquarters, offices, manufacturing centers, and other big markets. A global city has economic opportunities for attracting different talents across the world. And a global city also has economic competitiveness for leading in the global market. So, tatlo yun ha, economic power, opportunities, and competitiveness. A global city is also a center for authority, for being the home to major political buildings, a center for political influence, for being the house for major international organizations and affairs like the UN that is based in New York, and a higher learning and culture center for higher learning and culture, for having the largest room or home for learning and culture. So, in other words, a global city, or in a conclusion, a global city is a hub for a wide range of things like communication, transportation, finance, ideas, political, and etc. So, ganun ang global city. Matawag natin siyang global city pag nasatisfy niya yung ganong level ng attributes. Na hindi lang sa isang place, but also with the other places, meron siyang power to influence.
So let's move on to the world's best-known global cities. The greatest global cities were generally the largest and centers of the world's greatest empires: London, Paris, New York, and Tokyo. Efficiency and access to capital and information is more critical to being an important global city than number of jobs, according to Kotkin 2014. Since we have already discussed the meaning of global cities and what makes a global city, let's move on to the categorization of the global cities. We have 4 categories of global cities. The first tier is the truly global cities as the most powerful global financial articulations. They are called truly global cities because they have the most contribution in terms of the financial articulations in globalization. We have the first one, London. London's contribution to global economy is its industry remains finance. Sila yung pinakamalaking financial exporter sa buong mundo. It is considered a global city because of its competitive strength and skill levels across a wide range of services. New York. New York is a global hub of business and commerce as a center for being a finance, transportation, and many more. In other words, the city's high talent pool in its international connections and cultural attractions plus increase in direct foreign investments are the things that makes New York a global city. Number 3, Tokyo. Tokyo is considered the hub for financial companies that possess advanced financial techniques. It is Japan's largest major economic zone, enormous market with advanced needs, and is home to companies in all types of industries and businesses. So next is the second tier, cities that are based on the level of their multinational articulations. When we say multinational articulations, it means business organizations that involves the operation with several countries. We have 5. The first one is Miami. Miami is a global city on a regional scale where the Brickell Financial Center has the second largest concentration of international banks outside of New York. Next, we have the Los Angeles. It is a global capital of entertainment industry, mga concert or world tours, di ba? Medyo, hindi man sa medyo, pero marami sa Los Angeles. Next, we have the Frankfurt. It is a city in Germany where it traditionally known for the production of sausages. It has a rich collection of museums, historic buildings, and lively art and culture. Next, we have the Amsterdam. Amsterdam continues to be a global center for trade and finance and ideas. It is considered an alpha world city by Globalization World Cities because of its historical attractions, for its collection of great art, and collection of distinct color and flavor of its old sections. Next, we have the Singapore. Singapore is mainly driven by exports in electronics and manufacturing and machinery, financial services, tourism, and world's busiest cargo seaport. Singapore economy is one of the most stable in the world with no foreign debt, high government revenue, and a consistently positive surplus. Let's move on to the third tier global cities, cities that are based on the importance of their national articulation. These are the cities na kung mapapansin, global cities na kung mapapansin nyo, ang best services nila is na-offer nila sa place nila. The first one is Paris, one of the world's most visited places for centuries because of their the famous Eiffel Tower. Aside from the contribution of its tourism industry, Paris' economy prospers also in well-educated workforce, modern infrastructure, and global reaches in creative industries and business services. Let's move on to Zurich, home to much of Switzerland's avant-garde art and music. They also host many nightclubs, and contemporary art venues. Next is the Madrid. The Madrid urban agglomeration has the second largest GDP in the European Union. It's considered a major global city because of its influence in politics, education, entertainment, environment, media, fashion, science, and culture and arts. Let's move on to Sydney. Sydney is a global city because of its business prowess, intellectual capital, infrastructure and service business, and social needs, and an enviable lifestyle. The fifth one is Seoul. Seoul is considered a leading and rising global city. Sa mga K-drama lovers and K-pop fans knows na this, 'di ba? Yung mga ang Seoul ngayon, mas kilala sila sa K-pop industry nila, yung mga songs or groups like that. The rise in their K-drama naabot na sa ibang bansa. Yung kung ano yung na-offer ng country nila, yun yung parang kinaadikan ng ibang bansa or ibang tao. Like that. In 2014, they had reached a GDP of US dollar, 845,900 billion, and ranked as the world's fourth largest metropolitan country. They also export Korean goods like merchandises, Korean foods, and also designer clothes. Next is the Bangkok, city that exerts a significant impact on Thailand's politics, economy, education, media, and modern society. Taipei. It is a global city that is part of a major high-tech industrial area. Railways, highways, airports, and business connect Taipei with all parts of Thailand. So, ang best services nila yung airports or mga transportation. Next is the Sao Paulo, the largest city in South America. Concentrates more than half the production of Brazilian financial institution. Last is the Mexico, one of the most financial centers in North America. Mexico City influenced the political, cultural, educational, and financial center of the North. Next is the last tier. Fourth-tier global cities are based on subnational and regional articulations. Osaka, Kobe, Kansai in Japan are expanding exports, expanding imports, and expanding foreign production. In Hong Kong positioned as the world city of Asia that highlights the existing strength of Hong Kong in areas such as financial, trade, tourism, transport, communications, and as a regional hub for international business and major city in China. The Pearl River in Delta, world-class seaport, offers the world-class seaport a huge and inexpensive labor pool, cheap and abundant land, and a few regulatory impediments to rapidly growing companies. So let's move on to the reasons of increase in global cities, linked with two globalization-related trends. One is the expansion of the role of transnational corporations in global production patterns, and two is the decline of mass production along for these lines and the concomitant rise of flexible production centered with urban areas. We have here, according to SACEN 2013, these following are the causes pushing the increase in global cities. One is the geographic dispersal economic activities that marks globalization along with the simultaneous integration of such geographically dispersed activities is a key factor feeding the growth and importance of central corporate functions. Two, These central functions become so complex that increasingly the headquarters of large global firms outsource them. They buy a share of their central functions from highly specialized service firms. 3. Those specialized service firms engaged in the most complex and globalized markets are subject to agglomeration economies. 4. The more headquarters outsource their most complex understanding functions, partially those subjects to uncertain and changing markets, the more freer they are to operate from any location. 5. These specialized service firms need to provide a global service, which has meant a global network of affiliates and a strengthening of cross-border city-to-city transaction networks. 6 is the economic fortunes of these cities become increasingly disconnected from the border hinterlands or even their national economies. 7. One result of the dynamics is the growing informalization of a range of economic activities which find their effective demand in these cities, yet have the profit rates that do not allow them to compete for various resources with the higher profit-making firms at the top of the system. When we say geographic dispersal, this means that places or location that provides greater opportunities for everyone. Mapa-edukasyon, ekonomiya, transportasyon, health, environment, mobility, and even neighborhood quality. So, di ba ikaw, kung from province ka, pumupunta ka sa cities para maghanap ng magandang trabaho. Kasi we know, alam natin na sa ganitong lugar, maganda ang services doon, maganda yung na-offer, maraming opportunity. So, ikaw na naghahanap ng trabaho or gusto mong makakuha ng magandang buhay or magandang pamumuhay, nagmamigrate ka sa mga cities na sa tingin mo magbibigay sa inyo ng great opportunities. Another reason of the increase of global cities, yung mga city na naaabot ng international markets. For example, there's one location when yung isang lugar yung place nila, yung economy nila is nagde-develop. When they are developed enough, naabot nila yung international markets. Diba? For example, yung sa Singapore, diba? They export electronics manufacturing and machinery. So, yung products nila naabot internationally, na-export nila at the same time, meron din silang mga products na nai-import. So, yun yung kung ikaw as city naabot mo international market, syempre mas lalawak yung connection mo. May possibility na maging global city ka. Another one na nasabi doon kay Sassen is yung location. For example, isang industry, meron siyang location sa ganitong lugar. And then, sa lugar na yun, kung malaki yung territory niya doon, mas free na gumalaw yung industry na yon. Mas malaki yung operation na magagawa nila. The more cities that will develop and meet international connections, the more possibility of increase of global cities. The greater opportunities a city can serve also lead to the possible develop global city. Next is the criticisms of global cities. 1. Global cities have been known for being a threat to state-centric perspectives. 2. Have been accused of focusing their reach to other global cities than cities within the national reach. 3. Is that these cities are more connected to the outside world than to their domestic economy. Just like globalization, di ba? Globalization are also accused na nagfo-focus lang globally and not regionally. Kaya tayo may regionalization at meron din tayong globalization. Just like them, meron ding accusation ang global cities. Kundi yung mas naka-focus siya sa international reach, kundi yung mga international reach, yung mga other global cities. Nakakalimutan niya na rin yung mga cities within national reach. What kind of threats? Like environmental threats. Di ba? Rapid urbanization. Meron tayong sinasabi na mas maganda, meron talagang sa lahat ng bagay may limit at sa lahat ng bagay meron ding dapat meron lang kumbaga equality, pantay-pantay na pagkahati sa resources. Kung marami sa isang place na yun, marami ang mga tao, urbanized siya masyado, di ba mas maraming resources yung kailangan niya. Unlike sa mga province or ganito, rural places, maliit yung resources na nakokonsume nila. We all know that everything has disadvantage and advantages. That also applies in global cities. The only thing that I think we should think is what is good for everyone. So,
Lesson 2, Global Demography. In this lesson, we're going to discuss the demographic transition, criticisms of the Malthusian theory of population, and the effects of global population. By the end of this chapter or topic, you must be able to discuss the global demography, trends and patterns, explain the demographic transition and its impact on global population, and determine the effects of global population in relation to globalization. Demographic patterns were reasonably stable, wherein human populations grew slowly and the age structures, birth rates, and death rates of population changed only gradually. Epidemics and pandemics had a huge effect on populations. Pero ang mga epekto nito ay short-lived lamang and had a little bearing on the long-term trends. In the past 50 years, on the contrary, this trend of long-term stability has given way to the biggest demographic upheaval in history. An upheaval that is still running its course. In the developed world, a sharp post-war rise in fertility was followed by an equally sharp fall. These changes in fertility transformed age structures through a creation of baby boom generation. The aging of this generation and continued declines in fertility and old age mortality are shifting and the population balance in developed countries from young to old. But in the meantime, the developing world has experienced a population explosion, the result of improved nutrition or public health and infrastructure and medical care. Global demographic trends and patterns. The global population, which stood at just over 2 billion in 1950, is 6.5 billion today. The world is currently gaining new inhabitants at a rate of 76 million people a year, representing the difference in 2005 between 134 million births and 58 million deaths. Although this growth is slowing, middle group projections suggest the world will have 9.1 billion inhabitants by 2050, when growth will be approximately 34 million a year. These past and projected additions to the world population have been and will increasingly be distributed unevenly across the world. As you can see in the graph in the figure 1, today 95% of population growth occurs in developing countries. The population of the world 50 least developed countries is expected to more than double by the middle of this century, with several poor countries tripling their population over the period. By contrast, the population of developed world is expected to remain steady at around 1.2 billion, with the population declines in some wealthy countries. Demographic transition is a model used to represent the movement of high birth and death rates to low birth and death rates as a country develops from a pre-industrial to an industrialized economic system. It works on premise that birth and death rates are connected to and correlate with stages of industrial development. In the graph, the blue lines represent the total population. The green line represents the death rate and the orange line represents the birth rate. There are 5 stages of demographic transition model. In the stage 1, many births and many deaths, meaning the population is steady until the Industrial Revolution. In the stage 2, many births and death rate falls very fast, meaning very fast increase of the population. Examples are the poorest developing countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and more. In the stage 3, the develop rate falls and the death rate falls slowly, meaning rapid increase of population. So examples are the richest developing countries like Brazil, Mexico, India, and more. In the stage 4, the birth rate is still falling and the death rate is still falling, meaning slow increase of the population. Examples are the developed countries like European countries, USA, Japan, and more. And in the last stage, the stage 5, is the birth rate is still falling and the death rate is stable, meaning decrease of the population. And the examples are the Italy, Sweden, or Germany in the nearest future.
Criticism of the Malthusian theory of population. Malthusian theory by Thomas Robert Malthus on principle of population in 1798. Who is Thomas Malthus? He was an English economist and demographer best known for his theory that population growth will always tend to outrun the food supply and that betterment of humankind is impossible without strict limits on reproduction. In the Marx theory of population, the general assumptions are there can be no natural or universal law of population. Population growth is related to the economic system and both are inseparable. To Marx, poverty and unemployment were not due to increased population, but due to capitalist system which failed to provide jobs. As opposed by Marxist theory, poverty and unemployment are therefore only the result of workers' natural propensity to reproduce beyond the available means of subsistence. Marx rejects the Malthusian solution to the problems created by the contradictions inherent in the capitalist system. In the process of capital does not remain constant. It changes, and it is this change which is most important to understand the effect of capital accumulation and expansion upon the working population. Effects of global population. Globalization has direct effects on demographic processes. Those include movements of people within and across national borders, health and fertility outcomes, and changes in age structure. Historically, population growth has served as an impetus for global exploration, international migration, and colonization. In recent years, population dynamics have influenced globalization through effects on the distribution of labor and capital. The effect of overpopulation are the following. A. Pressure on limited resources. B. Deforestation. C. Lack of fresh water or water shortage. D. Increase in industrial and community waste. E. Air, water, and land pollution. F. Increased density of population. And G. More mining of mineral resources. There are two impacts of population growth. First impact is the impacts of population growth on physical environment. Physical environment means non-living environment or the land, air, water, soil, and minerals. The second one is the impacts of population growth on biological environment. Biological environment comprises of human biological systems, flora and fauna, living creatures from moth to midgets.
3. Global migration. Global migration is a situation in which people go to live in foreign countries, especially to find work. They are freely chooses to move to another place. It might be temporary or permanent. Most global migration is from developing countries to developed one. People migrate for a variety of reasons, including the search for better economic opportunities, education, family reunion, and escaping violence. People often migrate for a combination of this and other reasons. Moving from one place to another is a protected human right. The freedom to move is so precious that it is protected from human rights. International migration has four components. The migration of persons to a country other than that of their place of birth or citizenship. The return migration of nationals to their home country after residing abroad. The out migration of nationals from their home country. and the migration of foreigners from their country which they had previously immigrated. Our primary concern in this section will be the out migration of nationals and their in migration to other countries. There are interesting and important changes in the nature of today's migrants. First, the proportion of international migrants from the developed world has actually declined. In 2017, 38% of all international migrants were born in a country of the less developed regions and were residing in another developing country, while 35% were born in the south but residing in the north. The movement of people across international borders for the purpose of settlement. International migrants change their usual place of residence from one country to another. Second, there has been a large increase in the number of migrants from the developing world global. And while that equals just 3.5% of the world's population, it already surpasses some projections for 2050. Since 1970, the number of people living in a country other than that where they were born has tripled. The scale and speed of migration, defined by the International Organization for Migration or IOM, as the movement of persons away from their place of usual residence, either across an international border or within a state, is notoriously difficult to predict, given it can go hand in hand with events such as severe instability, economic crisis, or conflict. There are four factors of global migration. First factor is economic factors. Lack of employment opportunities or differentials in employment opportunities and wages. The lure of a well-paid job in a wealthy country is a powerful driver of international migration. Most of the studies indicate that migration is primarily motivated by economic factors. In developing countries, low agricultural income, agricultural unemployment, and underemployment are considered basic factors pushing the migrants towards developed area with greater job opportunities. Economic reasons include seeking higher wages, better employment opportunities, a higher standard of living, and educational opportunities. No matter the reasons behind an immigration decision, immigration provides the immigrant with a new start on life and more growth opportunities than were previously available. Second factor is political factors. The unattractiveness of agricultural activities, disasters, lack of basic amenities like roads, electricity, portable water, and inadequate health care facilities, and industrial adventures in countries have also encouraged international migration. But apart from economic factors, there are political factors that cause people to move from their home country to another country. War, persecution, and the absence of political rights are the predominant political factors in migration. Many people are forced to migrate because of a war, civil war, or state policies which discriminate against particular categories of its citizens or the political opponents of those in power. These people are unable to return home because they have founded fears of being persecuted are unlikely to receive any protection from their government. Political factors relate to how the government intervenes in the economy. Specifically, political factors have areas including tax policy, labor law, environmental law, trade restrictions, tariffs, and political stability. The third one is social factors. Social factors are things that affect someone's lifestyle. This could include wealth, religion, buying habits, educational level, family size and structure, and population density. Lack of educational institutions across developing countries has also tremendously contributed to the reasons for migration. This includes lack of health care and lack of religious tolerance, among other social factors. Political push factors influencing migration also include aspects of war and terrorism, unfair legal systems, and lack of governmental tolerance. The social effects of migration, amongst other, consist of change in family composition, family separations, and the abandonment of old people, child outcomes in terms of labor, health, and education. Migration may also affect risk perception and risk behavior. Feelings of loss and psychosocial issues related to lower social positions, unemployment, and being in a minority may lead to a feeling of lack connection between current risk behavior and future health effects. May turn to prostitution or drugs as a way to escape loneliness, frustrations, and social isolation. Lastly, cultural factors. The idea of culture is vital to understanding the implications of translation, and despite the differences of opinion as to whether language is a part of culture or not, the two are connected. Culture ranges from syntax, ideologies, religion, language, and dialect to art and literacy. It is usually involved slavery, political instability, ethnic cleansing, famine, and war. People who choose to flee or are forced to flee as a result of this problem are often refugees. Migration has contributed in the richness in diversity of cultures, ethnicities, and races in developed countries. Individuals who migrate experience multiple stress that can impact their mental well-being. Individuals, including the loss of cultural norms, religious customs, and social support systems, adjustment to a new culture, and changes in identity and concept of self. Indeed, the rates of mental illness are increased in some migrant groups. Mental health practitioners need to be attuned to the unique stresses and cultural aspects that affect immigrants and refugees in order to best address the needs of this increasing and vulnerable population. The push and pull factors. Push and pull factors of migration are driven by the push of conflict, extreme hardship, war, lack of economic opportunities, and etc., combined with the pull of more jobs, the promise of a better life, freedom to practice one's religion. Push factors or reasons to live are those that make people decide to leave their country and go somewhere else. Generally, migrants leave their countries because they are escaping poverty, unemployment, in fear of either political persecution or violent crime. The common push factors are low productivity, unemployment and underdevelopment, poor economic conditions, lack of opportunities for advancement, exhaustion of natural resources, and natural calamities. Push factors are negative things that make people want to move to a new area. Push factors are usually poor conditions in the homeland. There can be social, political, or economic factors. This drive people to leave the land they were born in. There can be also social factors that are often linked to economic reasons, which include the lack of suitable medical facilities in the country of origin, the lack of free or affordable education of an acceptable standard, or anything else that would offer them a better standard of living in a different country, also including a high crime rate and the people they are close to. There can also be social push factors that are often linked to economic reasons, which could include the lack of suitable medical facilities in the country of origin, the lack of free or affordable education of an acceptable standard, or anything else that would offer them a better standard of living in a different country, also including a high crime rate in the country of origin. Also, people tend to migrate to countries where they already know people they are close to, for example, friends or family. These are the most common political and economic push factors. Poor, infras- Poor infrastructure that results in services that fall short of being adequate. Famine, often caused by bad crops or unfavorable weather conditions. Lack of adequate medical care. high levels of long-term unemployment, extreme poverty, and lack of socio-economic upward mobility, few career and educational opportunities, the fear caused by high crime rates, poor standards of living, the fear of political persecution that could even result in jail time.
Pull factors, reasons to migrate, are the ones that make people decide to go to a different country. A useful way of thinking about pull factors is what attracts migrants to the specific country. So the main pull factors that attracts migrants to the United States, Canada, Australia, and the most prosperous European countries include to the following. So the Ramos 2017 said migrants are in search of personal and financial safety or opportunities in terms of employment, education, and social class mobility. They're also looking for freedom and stability. For the second, the most common political and economic pull factors. So, first, better infrastructure that results in adequate facilities and services, better healthcare and medical facilities such as hospitals, better job and educational opportunities, lower crime rates as a result of a combination of generally higher living standards and better, less corrupt, and more efficient police force. Demographic political stability, a generally higher standard of living, and lastly, more entertainment and better cultural options, which are results of higher standards living, higher education levels, and more disposable incomes. So, for the next one, overseas Filipino workers. Overseas Filipino are people of full or partial Filipino origin. For example, people who trace their ancestry to the Philippines and who reside outside of the country. This term generally applies both to the people of Filipino ancestries and to the citizens abroad. As of 2019, there are over 12 million overseas Filipino. In the recent years, the improvement of the economy and often attributed to their remittances further cemented their mark in the Philippines. To recognize their invaluable contribution to the Philippines, December each year is marked as the Month of Overseas Filipinos through Proclamation Number 276 signed by President Corazon Aquino in 1988. The sacrifices overseas Filipino workers or OFWs make just to provide a better life for their families earned them the title of Nation's Bagong Bayan or New Heroes. Here are the important facts of the Philippine Bagong Bayan. Number 1. Number of Filipinos or OFWs deployed are increasing each year. According to the Philippines Overseas Employment Administration or POEA, were a total of 1,844,000 and 406 OFWs in 2015 and 1,437,875 land-based and 406,531 sea-based. Data over the years suggests that there are an increasing trend in the number of the OFWs. So, the common challenges that OFWs face abroad and ways on how to cope with them. Number 1, homesickness. One of the biggest challenges of OFW is homesickness. It is distressing, and when they miss important events, special occasions, and not seeing their kids grow. Good thing, nowadays, it's easy to communicate with their loved ones through Facebook, Viber, or Skype. Second, communication gap and cultural differences. Working in another country or dealing with the locals and communicating with them can be exhausting. It may take a while to adjust and adapt, but don't stop learning their language and understanding their culture. There are a lot of ways to do it, given that information is just at the tip of your fingers. Third, financial. Most Filipinos think that working abroad will earn them big money, but sometimes they don't receive the high income that they expected. Since they send almost all of their income to their families back home, they need to make sacrifices and even neglect their basic needs while living in abroad. Fourth, maltreatment and other possible risks. We have heard stories told by OFWs about how they were maltreated abroad. As an OFW, keep these three things in mind. So first, know the location of the Philippines Embassy. Second, know the nearest offices that oversee the needs of Filipino workers abroad. And last, be aware of Republic Act number 10022. So that's it.